slides and then, okay, will there be some live streaming?
Yeah, YouTube live streaming is there. And let me, are you able to share the slide? Otherwise, I'll call our CTU's person and tell him to make you co-host.
I'll check. No, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, let me just call.
Okay.
Ma'am, I think ma'am has been made a co-host now. Okay. If you could try once again.
Yeah. Yes, now I can. Yeah. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, it's visible.
And am I audible? Should I speak louder? Because I'm not using earphones, so.
You are audible.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you. So I'll try to begin now. Would you mind if in between we can have some sort of interaction during the talk?
I think that will be very nice, interactive session.
All right. So I'll be beginning with, just give me a moment. I'll just minimize this. Yeah. And I hope since this whole discussion you people are having since last 3-4 days, you have heard a lot about eco-criticism, about the theory itself. So in my talk, I will be trying to connect how tribal literature, how we can take some lessons from tribal literature. I'll be specifically talking about Indian tribal literature. Although we will be discussing some of the characteristics which are there common in the indigenous people across the world. We'll try to have a glimpse in their culture, how all these natural symbols are a part of their literature when we look at it. The imageries which are used are always derived from nature because they are so closely related to it. So this is the way we are going to proceed. Then I have taken some poems and some stories. So the literature part I'm dealing with is basically fiction. Although, as all of us know, that fiction is not clearly fiction. It generally has some connections with the world around us. The stories are not only stories; they definitely have some relationship with the real life incidents. So this would be the agenda. We will be talking about the theory, a little bit, just history. I have not taken much part from to explaining the theory because I was assuming that the participants, the listeners, already have lots of talks about the theory itself. So it is just basically some broad understandings of the eco-criticism, as we know that this is made from these two words. We also call it sometimes green studies, deep studies. And this is how I have mentioned some of the books which were initially in England, then in America, how these texts deal with this topic of eco-criticism, the literature where it has been shown that how humans and nature are interconnected. So for my talk, it will the major theme will be what can be the lessons which we can take from tribal literature. How they have those sustainable practices. Sorry, my screen is stuck. It's not moving.
Maybe you can share it again. You just close it and share it again.
It just stopped. It's not moving at all. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, it is. Right now, okay. Yeah. Right now, I can see the second slide, I think, a glimpse of tribal culture.
Yeah. So as I've just mentioned, when we will be talking about tribal culture, we will begin it from the international perspective that there is no difference when we are talking about the indigenous people in anywhere in the world. Some characteristics which are very common, that they have these ecosystems, build ecosystems, their methods, their traditions, where they respect nature. They consider nature as a very integral part of it's an integral part of their life. So I have mentioned the sources as well, where these cohesive groups, they have this community-centric culture. They have these sustainable ways. For example, if I talk about it in the Indian context, if there is some forest, there are some caves, some mountain hills tops where there is lots of bauxite and minerals. They consider it as a very sacred place. They kind of worship it. So for them, it is a matter which is very close to their heart, and it goes from generation to generation. So if we look at the pieces created by them, they do not, even if they do not get any professional training, the pieces created by them are marvelous. So they are. It seems that they are directly connected with the nature, their ancestors. So when we look at the literature, there are many stories, there are many folk songs, there are many folk tales in which they talk to they mention that they are in connection with their ancestors. They do not have this compartments of the time that this is past, this is present, this is future. For them, it is kind of connected, kind of an ongoing process where they are. They do not follow this method of timeline. It's an ongoing process for them. And whenever we read literature, we find that they have those songs where they are recalling their ancestors, they are calling them, and their oral and visual forms of representation also. We find so many symbols, we find so many imageries which are directly deriving from nature. So I'll be discussing some of the poems and some of the stories which I have selected. And we can definitely learn lots of lessons from them of democracy, that how we and nature, both of us, are in a symbiotic relationship. So for example, if they want to use, they need some fuel, they won't cut a tree, rather they would cut some branches of that tree. So they have these sustainable practices. They do not have wealth accumulation, that they are going and using things and accumulating them. They use things from nature only which is needed. So this is some lesson which we can take by looking at the tribal culture, by reading from their literature. So the first one author which I have chosen is Tamsula Au, and this is her book Tombstone in My Garden. I have chosen 2 stories from this, and this story talks about. I just want to have to hear from the participants if anybody has already read this. Or should I move ahead?
I think so. You can just give us an introduction about this,
Yeah. Okay. I will just try to minimize these because I cannot see the. So I have some quotes from the story, which will show that how the symbols or images are drawn from the story. So the story goes like this. So we have characters. We have animal characters. We have plants. We have saplings. We have trees, and they're all talking to each other. So it's a very, very, very sweet story. So there is this small sapling, and the sapling is in a old tree's crevice. So the sapling takes her head out, and it's talking to that grand old tree. This tree, we came to know in the end that this tree is considered as their ancestor. So that the quote which I have again taken in the next slide, probably it will come, where that an old man is giving an introduction about this old tree, saying that you should, keep away, stay away from nature if you are coming here to exploit it. So this sapling is taking her lessons from this grandfather, we can say. So I would like to pay your attention to the 4th paragraph, which is here. He began to feel the first sensation of something which he had not felt or heard of earlier, fear. So this text is clearly showing that how humans encroaching their spaces is causing a sense of fear. If we look at it from a tribal person's perspective, so there are trees, there are forests, there are sea, and there are people who are living closer to it. In the forest, they are living inside the forest. So when, for the sake of development, we try to exploit nature, it's not only the nature which is getting affected, it's also the people who are staying there also gets affected. For example, if we look at the constitutions, so in the whole world, Ecuador is the first country. In its constitution, it has given provisions for those people who are staying in the forests. And if we look at the data of where there are countries which are kind of considered as dangerous, so there are in top 5 countries, there comes the list where it becomes it becomes really a serious issue, where all of us think about how to saving nature as well as how to saving or protecting the rights of those people who are staying closer to it. So now there are some other quotes. Here there is this conversation in the story goes on that this sapling has been taught that we have to stay away, we have to be very cautious from this 2-legged enemy. And the man, they are standing there, they're talking, and they are saying that because they built themselves beautiful houses with the timber from our bodies. So here the trees are talking to themselves, and they are making aware the small little saplings that we have to be very cautious. And then this is the conversation. This was my best specimen, where these human beings, these men, they are considering these trees as their so for them this is just a thing to exploit. So I was going to use it for my new house. Somewhere in the story there is this conversation where the trees are saying that okay, they grow us, they water us, they give us manure, they take care of us, only to cut us down in the end to beautify their houses. So they treat us just as we are something which they can just consume. And this one I had promised to give to my brother. Now these 2 humans are talking there. Look at them now. What am I going to do? I think I'll put some fuel on the whole lot and burn them all to hell. So these after this is a scene after a storm came there, and the trees are all uprooted. So these humans, they find it very ugly. These are some of the songs. So now what happens in the story, the trees and the animals of the forest, they make a plan that, okay, now when the humans come, we are going to play our role efficiently, and we make sure that we will throw them out of our forest. So they give different tasks to different animals. For example, they give tasks to the ants, they give tasks to the dogs, they give tasks to the monkeys. So everybody is doing their part, and they're trying to save themselves, trying to save the nature from humans. So these are 2 different songs. Oh, you mighty keeper of the heavens, protect us from the 2-legged devils. They're referring to the humans. Help us grow strong and kind-hearted to share our gifts with all your creatures. Also, we can take a lesson from here that help us grow strong and kind-hearted. So in general, if we have this imagination of strong versus kind-hearted, if we look at it from this story, from this tree talking, that being strong and being kind-hearted are the similar traits which humans can have, or all of us can have. Then, O mighty one, above creator of us all, big or small, receive these souls and keep them in your care till we join them someday. As this is a major characteristic that they refer to their ancestors a lot of times. They worship them. Now I cannot read the whole from the slide. So this is how they are trying to protect. And then what happens? They successfully managed to keep those humans away. Now what happens? One photographer came here. We can call him an artist or photographer. He came to the forest and he saw there is a huge big tree which is a bit on a bit height. So people who were going there, they were just going and visiting the forest and coming back. Nobody tried to go to that height and look at that tree from a closer angle. Now this photographer, he tried hard. He went up and then he tried to capture that tree from different angles. So this tree was spread, the branches were spread away far in various directions. Now this is the conversation between the two, where this man, he's explaining that, that is how our grandfathers heard these warnings, whether it was enemies, wild animals, or big thunderstorms. And that is why this tree has lived. So he's telling the story of that tree has lived for so long, and it will live longer than all humans because he's our protector. So they consider nature, they consider their ancestors, that they are protecting them. And whenever, for the sake of development, for building any dam or for building any factory or for mining purpose, we enter there and we exploit it. So he's warning that do not do this. Do not ask any more questions about Big Father. So there is Big Father. This person is referring to that old big tree. Go in peace, stranger, but heed my words, do not ever come back. So what this photographer does, he takes the photographs from various angles, and then after a few months later, he he had this exhibition where he himself, he did not, he was not present there. On the first floor, what he did, he put some empty hangings on the walls all around. And then people were a bit frustrated and irritated that what is this? We were supposed to be here for an art exhibition. So that if we look at the subtext, it also tells us that how for our own amusements, we keep flowers or we keep painting. So there are various stories in the same book, Tombstone in My Garden, where there are, in the photograph, there are trees and they're talking to each other. Then the next story, which I'm going to talk about, will be a flower, a lily, who was inside a pot and she denied to bloom. We will discuss it later. So what he did then, on the second floor, he kept those pictures from various angles, which he had taken from the old tree on the second floor. And then when everybody entered, they were astonished by the look. So these are the last lines where, so all the visitors who came there, the visitors strolled around the canvas in an orderly circle one more time, as if paying their last respects to a deity, and left the premises with a curious sense of having encountered the unknown. So they were trying to say that we should be living in a symbiotic relationship, rather than in a way where we go and exploit. Are there any questions in the chat? All right, no questions, some comments.
Yeah, let me check. I think, just
yeah.
one comment is there, yes.
So maybe we can have a discussion in the end. So this is another story, Snow Green. This is also a very beautiful story. So as we were discussing earlier as well, that there are these leaves talking, there are flowers talking, there are trees talking. So I think this is a very, very beautiful way where we can connect, we can evoke those emotions of empathy. So a lily, these are the opening lines, a lily that refused to bloom one season because she was dislodged from her accustomed position in the garden bed and crammed into an ornate pot so that she could be entered in a forthcoming flower show. Now, in this story, there are various imageries, there are various characters. There is a gardener, old gardener. There is this cruel mistress. So if we take this, if we see this extended metaphor, it clearly shows that how we humans are dislocating them, the flowers, the trees, for our own for our own pleasure things. So it was an act of violation of her natural rights. So Tamsila Au has very beautifully given voices to these plants. She felt she was condemned to a prison away from the freedom of the open spaces around her. Now if we can use this extended metaphor for a human being, probably we will be able to understand it more clearly, that how disturbed we feel whenever we feel that, okay, our privacy is hampered. Somebody is taking our rights away. So we get very anxious and we try to revolt. Same thing the flower in this story is doing, which is a very beautiful way of presenting it from the angle of, if we are law students, or if we are anyways, we know our rights, we are always aware about our rights. So giving that practical part is really interesting in this story. There are various images like coffin, photograph, funeral. So the story goes on, and this Lily, she denied that I'm not going to be a part of that flower show which the cruel mistress is. So in the whole story, it's very interesting that we do not know the name of this cruel mistress is not mentioned. So it's very clearly shown that here the writer is trying to show us the relationship between this nature and human beings, that human beings consider themselves as the masters of everything. So this word is used throughout the story. No name is mentioned, just to maybe emphasize that we are not in a symbiotic relationship with nature. We are in a relationship where we are treating them as our slaves, or we are just using it, exploiting it. So she says that I'm not going to bloom. Where there are other flowers, they are by her mistress, they are considered as general, normal, simple. And she always treated this lily, this white lily, as something wonderful, because this was the one who brought many prizes to her. So she always loved her special, given her special treatment. But she felt confined, because she was happy where she was earlier, in the garden. And this gardener, probably the writer is trying to portray that this gardener who is taking care of the flowers, the plants, of the earth, of the nature, probably this is the tribal people. Probably we can make different interpretations, of course. And then she says, I refuse to be put on display. Again, I'm not able to read the code because of these small boxes over there. But this is very interesting. I really want to read that. Can someone help me? How can I shift it to some other place? These icons, these small icons which are here. Yeah, okay. Yes. So I refuse to be put on display in some strange place for humans to come and gape at me. I feel constricted in this spot. I want to feel the fresh earth around me. I want to chat with my friends in the open garden, laugh with them, and be myself. So what happens now? The gardener, he tries to take care of her, and he said to her many a times that, you are being adamant now. You are actually behaving the way your mistress used to behave. So probably if we look at it from the post-colonial point of view, maybe this person is mimicking that. So as literature students, we used to study the mimicry, the concept of mimicry, that sometimes as slaves, our mind is conditioned in a way that we start to behave in the same way our masters used to. So this can be interpreted in that way also. So she was adamant, but this gardener was cajoling her, trying to say her that, okay, you should not be adamant. You should look at the various perspectives of life. Maybe look at your friends. They are always treated as ordinary. You are getting special treatment. Why are you behaving so adamant? He tried his best, but then what happens? He died. Now, why he died? A very interesting twist came into the story, that she was found on the coffin of that gardener, and a picture was shown to the mistress where she saw that, okay, now this was in full bloom. So maybe the writer is trying to convey us the message that if we take care of the nature, it will also take care of us. If we are going to exploit it, maybe nature's furry will be there. There was another factor which has caused the situation that had affected him and Snowgreen, the unmeted vanity of his mistress. So in the end, this is the last line. The woman was hugging the empty pot and singing a lullaby. Probably, again, the author is trying to give us the lesson that in the end, if we do not start understanding the importance, the importance of the symbiotic relationship which we should maintain, probably the results would be the consequence. We should be ready to face those consequences. Okay, now, so I have tried to take contemporary texts in the Indian context. So now the next few of the lines from the poems I'm going to take are by Jacinta Kirketa. She's a very young lady, some 35, 38 years old, and she's doing really well. She's writing stories and poems, and her works are being translated into many languages, in German, in French. So the poems which I have taken for this lecture are from Angor. It was, when it was published in Hindi and English, and then Hindi and German at the same time. So the major theme in all of her works is, again, not only the nature, but the people who are staying closer to the nature, the guardians who are protecting, who have sustainable ways, and we should learn how the actual democratic ways through which we learn that this is how we should be in the relationship with nature. So these are not the whole poem. I have just taken a few sentences, few stanzas. So this one is from. So the name in the bracket is the name of the poem, and the collection of this, the name of the book is where this poetry collection, it's Angor. So deep in blissful slumber, the flower's perfume startles and awakens when the stench of machines invades the senses and ears scream in splitting pain from the noise of explosions. It's very explicit. So we can now, at this part, maybe we can discuss that what is the poet trying to convey to us. It's clearly showing us the relationship between nature and human beings. Can we make it a bit interactive now at this part?
Yes, I think we can go forward. And this is a very nice, actually, sentences here, like, it's very explicit that, that, like, talking about, use of machines, or you can say maybe industrialization, and how we use actually machines in different purposes, and how that could be, you can say that it can startle actually the flowers, right? Or nature. And it's a very nice thought. We never probably thought that our actions, it can, we talk about anthropogenic impact. There is probably a subtle, way, it is saying like how we impact actually nature. I mean, that is how I felt, after reading this.
Yeah. And the next one is leaving behind their homes, their soil, their bales of straw, feeling the roof over their heads. They often ask, "Oh city, are you ever drenched by the very roots in the name of so-called progress?" So this is the poem. This is not a stanza. This was the poem in itself, and the title is "Oh City."
These are taken from the same book, right?
Yes, the book is same. Also, all of the major works by Jacinta Kirketa, they talks about all these issues. So Angor, and another is Ishwar or Bazaar. That is also a very interesting book in which there are these small little poems. And also one more important thing which her texts mention is that sometimes what happens, there are people who go outside into the city, they are well read, and they do not want to come back to the place where they were born. And there are stories, there are poems which talks about that there is matriarchy in the tribal culture. So this point, which I found it in very contrast with what other authors I have read, she openly talks about that my mother, she was facing a lots of domestic violence issues at home. So we never know that the whole narrative which we are with which we are surrounded, maybe there are still voices which are unheard, and we do not know what the reality is.
There is one comment in the chat box, Shashul. Somebody has written, Prashad, I think from St. Xavier's College. The second stanza is deeply profound. And then he has introduced himself, I think.
So I would recommend, let's make it a dialogue rather than a discourse. I think maybe you can comment on the next few poems. So the next will be, yeah.
Hello, good afternoon, ma'am.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi, ma'am. There's a part where you mentioned that that the flowers and the plants think that we're humans grow them or water them. They want to take, they want to make use of natural resources. I think this is where the entire concept of social reproduction comes in, because even in the capitalist world, it's not just human beings exploiting nature, but human beings are also exploiting other human beings. What do you have to say about that? Is it just nature? People get paid.
I'm not
they're
able to
or,
hear you properly. Is it my network which is bad, or I don't know, Dr.
I
Priyanka?
think Ritika's probably that network is not very
Mhm.
good. Your voice is breaking, Ritika.
Yeah,
Can
cannot
you
hear.
can you go to somewhere else and try speaking later? Yeah, maybe Dr. Chashul, you can move forward.
Yeah,
I think she has network issue.
Yeah. So this is the stanza from two stanzas I have taken from the river, the mountain, and the bazaar. So little posterity. So this is a poem where two people, they are going to a shop. So we can consider it after 30 years or 50 years, something like that. We can situate it somewhere in near future. So here they go and they talk to the shopkeeper. Little posterity ran on, we are here at the bazaar. What would you like to buy? The shopkeeper asked. So it's in a dialogue form. Brother, a little rain, a handful wet earth, a bottle of river, and that mountain preserved. There, hanging on that wall, a piece of nature as well. So again, this imagery is this theme, this imagery is quite common in all of these pieces. That okay, maybe someday will come where we will be just adoring our houses with paintings, with pictures, and there will be no real trees in the around us. And so there is this sense of warning every time that we have to stop our actions. We have to understand that we have to preserve nature. And why is the rain so dear, pray tell? The shopkeeper said, this wetness is not of here. It comes from another sphere. Times are slack, have ordered just a sack. Similarly, those gurgling waters of Busaro River were once my cradle. On her lap, I had bounced. In her ripples, I had played. Today, I see the ever-thirsty, flickering, slavering, devilish tongue of the growing population has dried up all those waters. A length of bright sands once watched her frame like golden folds of a sari. Brazen, insolent hands grabbed at her robes unashamed, slowly tearing the threads off her body. This is again stanzas from a poem from the same book. And this dust of development, breathing in the dust of progress, day and night, life cuffs in distress. The hurt has aged before its time, and eyes once with hope alive are now counting their numbered days. These are the translation. I've taken it from a book. So all those stories, all those poems which we read were written in English, were written in they were not translation. These are some of the songs, some folk songs, which exist in their own culture, and now this is a translation. So as I've this is visible. I hope that it's a Munda song, it's a Santali song, a Ho song, and one more is there, a Kondh song. So again from tribal literature. My mother, the sun rose, a son was born. My mother, the moon rose, a daughter was born. As we were talking, that it's a crucial part of their culture, their art, the literature, the folk songs, the folk stories, the folk tales. Nature is everywhere in their, that's a part of their narration, that's a part of their life. And there are some texts also which mentions that we need not to do something huge. We just have to do a one small thing, that let's leave the rivers as they are. Let's leave the forests as they are. Just keep them, just leave them and stay away from them. We need not to have big cleaning projects. if we can just stop our actions, our involvement, we throw stuff in the rivers, so all these things which are causing pollution, we just stop ourselves, we just stay where we are, we just let them flow, let the rivers flow on their own, everything would be cleaned if we stop our actions. Of course, we need to invent so many methods for this. A son was born, the cowshed was depleted, a daughter was born, the cowshed filled up. And then there is this poem in which they are referring to their ancestors. This we offer to you, we can, because we are still alive. If not, how could we offer at all, and what? We give a small baby foal, take this and go away. Whichever way you came, go back, return, don't inflict pain on us after your departure. So there is this recurring image of talking to the ancestors. Where do you roam, dear ancestor? The day long and the endless night, the high noon on the rocks, the rainy months in the forest. Come back today and receive our marriage offering, a piece of meat, a morsel of rice, and a cup of rice beer. Yeah, so this also gives us a glimpse of their eating habits, so there are other stories available which talks about that this is the culture which they follow, and what happens when so there is this issue of when they are migrating, they are coming to the cities, and then they leave, they do not find this sense of belongingness, because their eating habits are a bit different from the prevailing culture of cities. Their eating habits are different. So there is this story collection by Hansda Shekhar, The Adivasi Will Not Dance. There is a story in that book, They Eat Meat. That's the opening, the first story, They Eat Meat. Here he talks about a family. So they got posted and they came to a certain state. And when they came there, in the society, it was a normal habit of people not eating non-veg. So the society was all vegetarian, and they did not allow you to eat eggs or fish or non-veg food. So this is the beauty of literature, that it gives us that story from one person's point of view. So when we read a news of 100 people, maybe we do not the emotions of empathy maybe do not evoke. And here, when we make stories from an individual perspective, things become more clearer to us. So he talks about how he faced difficulties in even fulfilling his basic right of eating. So they were whenever they were cooking eggs, or so they were trying to reduce the number of eggs they were using. Okay, in a week we will consume just 2 days. We won't have any meat. So whenever they used to cook egg or meat, they used to use agarbatti, so that the smell doesn't go, to the next floor or the person. It was really difficult for them at the first place to get a room on rent, a flat on rent. So that also becomes crucial, that when we are reading these tribal literature pieces, the stories, the poems, we come to know about their culture, and probably that will help us to understand in a better way that that they are no different. They people all around the world are the same. We all have different food habits, we all have different cultures, so we have to just embrace everybody with their differences. So tribal literature gives us those lessons also. Yeah, so that was all. I think I could for 40 minutes I could do it.
Yes, thank you, Charshul. And you can unshare your slides if you want.
Yes, I can.
Thank you for such a nice presentation and such good poetry. And I would also say that it's the slides were very vibrant. Specifically, there are a lot of green. You have chosen the way color. That was very nice. And I will check if there is any question in the chat box. It seems there is one comment from Sunita Rao.
Mhm.
She has written a poignant poem commenting on the future and predicting a dry future, and about wars which will be fought for water and not land. And
Just a second, can I, how can I stop sharing my screen? I'm trying to find out.
there should be an option, stop sharing, something like that.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out. Stop share. Yes. Yeah.
So there is one more comment regarding, as you mentioned, some poems. So in the context of a poem, we also got a comment like dust of capitalism. So anyway, so the floor is open for questions right now. Participants, you can directly ask Chashul if you have any questions.
Or any sharings. So I think that happens whenever we read some literature, it gives us, it goes into those deeper memories which are there hidden somewhere, and when we read something, the images come back, the memories come back.
I would say, when I was listening to these poetries, I don't know, have you read Gulzar's, some nature related poem? And it's reminded, Gulzar has written a lot about, nature. And similar, he talks about cities, how pollution happened. Like there are a lot of similar tone I found. And it just reminded me Gulzar's poem. And one thing I also, as you were giving this presentation, another idea which came up, I think it reflected, I don't know if you have attended this Dr. Slovik's, lecture in the first day. And he also talked about, when there is a single image, people actually, they are able to more relate as the number, goes high. Like when, then actually we are not that sensitive. Like emotionally we are not that sensitive. So that was actually that idea actually came up in our first session also. And I think I still remember that he mentioned we are highly sensitive to some information and insensitive to other information. And also
That's
like
imagery.
And I think that you also throughout your session that got reflected also, the way you have given those poetic imagery and the other poems you have brought about. I think that is quite visible in there's a parallel I found. And one more thing I would mention, the deep ecology. I was just thinking about deep ecology because in your whole presentation, the whole concept of deep ecology was, we can connect to that idea also, because nature has its intrinsic value and it has its own rights to survive. Like we don't have the right to actually violate. So that was very much visible in your whole presentation. So that's, 2 comments from my side. And if other, research scholars or any faculty participants, if you want to comment, please feel free, feel free to share your thoughts. And
I would love to listen,
there is one poem actually.
For 40 minutes, you were kind enough, you were listening to me. Now at least, I should also give back.
I think there is one poetry, just you can take a look at the chat box, and I can read it also. Yeah. It's from Prashad, I think from St. Xavier's College.
Related to war.
War zone, poetry related to war. I can read it. Since I cannot take up my mind into the shrouded, mutilated, lacerated dead bodies of the innocent civilians, I tear up my clothes with knives and fingernails, wearing on me and bleed, hanging it on a string from this place on the earth to eternity. So thanks, Prashad, for sharing sharing this poem. Could you mention also the poet? That would be very nice if you can mention the poet in the chat box.
Also, I'm the poet. Oh, wonderful. That's wonderful.
Okay. Any other thoughts on Chashul's presentation? Please go ahead and share, or any poetry if you want to share. I mean, this session is little different than the other session, I would say, and definitely you can share any poetry if it comes to your mind.
So we have poets here. And maybe all of the people should know that Dr. Priyanka writes so beautiful verses.
Yeah, that's a little hobby.
She writes a lot. Beautiful poems. About nature as well.
Yes, nature and yeah, some nature. Yes, I have written some gender related. I think there was in one poem you have shared that that tribal literature poem you shared. I think there was a gender dimension that a son was born, cowshed was emptied.
Yes.
Could you please
Yes.
reflect on that little bit? And then the daughter was born, and that it got filled. So
Yeah.
what is this idea? Could you please reflect on that a little bit?
That's from the that's a translation. So how I was trying to understand it, I interpret it as the many stories which tells that there is matriarchy in tribal communities. So I found it that probably it's giving us that hint that how the value of women, the value of their they being as the nurtures. Maybe we can look it from that angle, ecofeminism. That they are, how they are the nurturers and we actually need them. This is how I try to relate with it.
Yes, I mean, I noticed that, when you displayed it, it was there. So there's a gender dimension I found in that poetry.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts, participants? We still have 2 more minutes to go, and we can take 1-2 questions or comments.
Yes, ma'am, I have a question. Hello.
Yes, Ritika, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am, my question is that as you're speaking of tribal literature and people like coming from primitive modes of subsistence who are like pretty much close to the nature, ma'am, do you think that this empathy or compassion towards nature is more pronounced among the tribal community compared to people living in the cities? Even the most of the policy makers are from the city who are not that close to nature, but somewhere like in tribal literature, I think that people are more like tribal people who are closer to the nature and more concerned about nature. Ma'am, what do you have to say about that?
Yes, definitely. I totally agree what you're saying. I totally agree. So they are very compassionate. We can see the dimension of compassion, empathy in if we look at the subtext, it is definitely there because they are closer to nature. They are more sensitive. And in one of the slides also I mentioned that for emotions are at priority than rationality. That is very true. That is very true. Dr. Priyanka, should I share the slides also?
Yes, there is one more actually poetry came from Prashad. And if you are interested in reading, I think you can read it, Sashul. I would request you to read it instead of me.
One more poem from my side for your kind reading, if I may.
Okay, he wants to read it. Prashad wants to read it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sure. Please go ahead, Prashad, Mr. Prashad. Maybe he's not here.
If you could please, he's saying.
Okay.
Yeah. Mentoring upon the nature and its art sublime, I quicken my gaze towards porcelain bovine. It reminds me of Ode to a Grecian urn by John Keats. Mooing her calf in a resonant voice, and I paint Orion of my heart with a dab of a brush, grazing eternity upon eternity. Are these your research scholars, Dr. Priyanka?
Oh, I think he's an outside participant. He's not from BIJP.
Okay, I think no more comments or questions are there. Thank you. Thank you.
One comment actually from Miss. I think one comment I think came from Shunita Rao. Like just a comment, like any comments on water wars. I think we have read that poem that, or no, Chashul, can you just take a look at that comment from Sunita Rao?
I can only see thanks for the recitation, regards, and before that wonderful session, ma'am. And I'm from St. Xavier's College of Management and Technology, Patna. Okay, so this person has given his intro. Apart from this, I cannot see any comment.
There is a one comment from Sunita Rao that she's asking that is there any comment on water wars? I think in your poetry, in your presentation, you have talked about water wars in, as in future, water is going to be very scarce. There is a lot of, politics associated with water sharing, river water sharing. And there was, a lot of writing also came up that how water is going to be scarce in near future and people might have war, like the countries might have war. Like, I think, so maybe I'm not sure about the context of this comment, but maybe from that angle, maybe she's trying to say.
From that poem which I shared, it was not only about water. The majorly in the whole poem, they were talking about how the things which are available to us for free, maybe in the upcoming years, it will be really difficult to get that. Regarding to water war, I don't think I can comment on it.
Actually, yeah, you can talk. I mean, water war not in that sense, but there are a lot of water-related conflicts.
Yeah, that
for example, like Tista River, for example, India, Bangladesh, that Ganges water sharing, and also if you go to Palestine area, I mean that Jordan River, and that is actually lifeline for Israel and Palestine and other neighboring countries also, and they do have some conflict. It's a very common actually, even with Indus also. All over the world, actually, we find water-related issues.
So in our states, such as Punjab and Haryana, there are some rivers in which they are saying that, okay, we are not going to give you water. But I do not have any, I cannot recall any specific data regarding this. I mean, I've heard about it, I've read about it, but I don't think I'm able to speak anything about it. It's just politics which goes on.
It is international politics, and it is also like, it's a you can say there is no war in that sense.
I understand.
It can escalate to an war, like in a metaphorically maybe.
Yes.
In future, we don't know the future right now, considering the climate change and changes we are seeing right now. And definitely water is very going to be scarce. Even Indian cities are having a lot of water issues. If you have lot of urban areas in India, they are going to have problem in near future, and we have faced that already in Chennai, in Delhi. I mean, common, specifically in summer months. Even Lucknow had a water issue in summer month. So in that sense, maybe in future we don't know like what would happen, but definitely water is a big issue right now in India.
Yes. There are. Also we can also relate it with the impact of it on humans, on animals, on the planet. Okay, and then also it has an impact on women, especially if we look at it from a gender perspective. There are various real incidents where there are states where people marry 3 women, one for the household and one for doing something else, and one for just fetching water. So yeah, we have states, we have some states where this issue is there.
Okay, I think any more comments or thoughts? I think we can conclude, otherwise we can conclude the session. Let me check the chat box for the last time. Okay, no more comments, Shashul, or no more question. So I think we can now conclude the session. Okay, there is just one question came from Bindusri. Just a minute. Okay, we can take it. Bindusri wrote, Could you please give us your insights on the distinction between the wilderness and urban ecology concept? Should the civilized cities or places adopt or reform into the ecological or greenery, as nowadays the architecture includes rooftop and sunlight exposed areas with greens that can improve ecology?
I'm just reading it. I was listening to you as well. I think the concepts of rainwater harvesting and these things can be discussed here, probably.
Yes, I think so. Concept of rainwater harvesting. Actually, these days, archaeologists, they are trying to, there is the whole concept of urban green space, right? Those are coming.
Yes,
So
yes.
Livable city, for example.
Yeah.
A city should be livable. There should be bike path. There should be greenery,
open
proper
areas,
planning, open areas. So definitely, that is another, like, sustainable cities and livable city concept. What I think Bindus is trying to address that. Definitely places, there is reform going on, even in basically in architecture and city planning. So today, there are many cities, in Europe, they're like, they're marked like, there's a ranking of cities also, at what degree, they're livable cities. Even in the USA also, like Portland, there is this whole concept of livable city and sustainable city. So definitely, green infrastructure. Yes, that's true. So
I think it's for example, I stay in Greater Noida. Here as well, it's mandatory from the authority that this whenever we are building houses, whenever there is society, there should be that green belt which should be kept. So mandatorily there are norms which they have to follow. If they do not follow it, then it's not passed. The map, they are simply strictly saying no to this. So if you come to Greater Noida, you'll find it's greener, because there are some strict laws related to it. I think the behaviors matters, the people who live nearby. Yeah.
Yes, the behavior is there, behavioral aspect, how eco-friendly you are, or maybe that, pro nature, and it doesn't come very easily. You have to work very hard to be eco-friendly and, pro nature.
Consciously, we have to work towards this, and we have to be very mindful in our practices, whatever we are. So, for example, in our societies, in urban areas, there is continuous water flow. So there is the no cut, as in electricity, no cut, water, no cut, 24 hours supply. So in order to, I don't know, we should adopt some methods where we stop ourselves. Okay, so from this hour to this hour, we are not going to use water at all. We just don't waste water. And also maybe some techniques which we can make it a part of our life. For example, using the water which we use for mopping the house. Maybe we can use that same water, instead of throwing it into the sink, we can use it for the pots in the house or something like that. Maybe some small steps which we can do on our own individual level.
I don't know, there is one comment which I'm not, you can take a look, Chashul.
Is it like ecological dystopia?
Yeah, just if you want to address anything, and then maybe
maybe the person herself should say something about it. Tiyasha Roy. Yeah, maybe the person can unmute and speak a little bit. No, they're not willing to speak. I don't know what to say about it.
Okay. I think we can conclude the session then, Chashul.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. I would like to thank our Associate Dean, Dr. Thaya Afzal, for supporting us. I would thank our IT department for their technical support. And I also thank all the participants, for joining, all the research scholars participants who are present here. And thank you, Dr. Sashil, once again for
Thank you so much.
giving us your time. Thank you. I'm ending the session then.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.